Welcome, everyone, to this Executive Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today for our Strategic Management Masterclass. Now, I know a lot of you tuning in already have incredibly strong backgrounds in accounting and finance, and you're here because you're gearing up for the CSCA examination, or maybe you're just looking to seriously sharpen those executive decision-making skills for the boardroom. So today, we are stepping way beyond the basic business concepts. We're going to put on our executive hats, think like true strategist, and really explore the dynamic evolution of industries. Let's get right into it. Okay, here's a quick look at our masterclass syllabus. We're going to cover the fundamental question of industry growth, break down the 5 life cycle stages, and clarify the crucial difference between industry and product cycles. After that, we'll run through some rapid-fire CSCA mini cases before bringing it all together with our executive reflections. All right, starting right off with Section 1, the fundamental question. Before we look at any frameworks, we really need to challenge our foundational assumptions about how business actually grows. So why do some industries experience just explosive, massive growth, while others decline and completely disappear? Listen, it's not just luck. Industries, much like living organisms, evolve over time. They emerge, they grow, they mature, and eventually they decline. As an executive or a CMA candidate, answering the question, at what stage of development is our industry currently operating, is entirely non-negotiable. Your answer to that single question literally dictates your investment decisions, your resource allocation, your innovation priorities, and honestly, your organization's survival. If you get this wrong and fail to recognize the stage of your industry, you're going to be applying strategies that are completely obsolete. That takes us perfectly into Section 2, where we'll unpack our core framework, the 5 life cycle stages. The first thing to remember is that industries are highly dynamic. They are not static, and they generally pass through these 5 distinct stages: embryonic, growth, shakeout, mature, and decline. At every single step along this progression, the strategic environment completely transforms. Customer demand shifts, competitive intensity evolves, and profitability wildly fluctuates. You absolutely cannot use a one-size-fits-all strategy across this timeline. It just doesn't work. So let's look at how this shifting landscape alters your playbook. In the embryonic stage, demand is low, it's highly uncertain, and profitability is practically non-existent because you're making heavy investments. Your strategic focus here, pure innovation and customer education. But watch what happens as we move to the growth stage. Suddenly, demand skyrockets, economies of scale kick in, profitability shoots up, and your focus has to shift toward rapid expansion. Then we hit the critical shakeout stage. Growth slows down, excess capacity floods the market, and your margins start to get squeezed. Your strategy has to pivot instantly to efficiency and cost reduction just to survive. As the dust finally settles from that, we enter the mature stage. Demand stabilizes, the market is saturated, and profitability is moderate but fairly steady. Here, your job is playing defense, defending market share, and keeping the customers you have. Finally, in decline, demand drops off, price wars are fierce, and you've got to make the tough call. Do we harvest profits, reposition, or just completely exit? Let's bring this to life with some real-world examples. Think about artificial intelligence or commercial space tourism right now. Those are embryonic. You're seeing massive investments, huge uncertainty, and mostly just early adopters. Now look at electric vehicles and cloud computing. Those are squarely in the growth stage, characterized by a rapidly expanding customer base. But what about smartphones? In the early 2000s, they were embryonic. In the 2010s, explosive growth. Today, they are deep in the shakeout, moving toward maturity. Growth has slowed way down, weaker players have dropped out, and it is an intense battle for efficiency. Fast food and soft drinks? Classic mature industries, stable, dominated by incredibly strong incumbents. Meanwhile, things like film cameras and printed newspapers are textbook examples of the decline stage. They're facing shrinking markets and steady competitor exits. Now, here's a crucial point. For the CSCK exam, and really for boardroom strategy in general, you have to avoid common analytical traps. The first major trap we see is confusing embryonic with growth. Remember, in embryonic industries, demand is a giant question mark. You are burning through cash just to educate customers and literally create a market out of thin air. Growth, on the other hand, means you have strong, expanding demand. Your biggest challenge isn't educating, it's scaling your operations and grabbing market share as fast as humanly possible. Do not mix these up. They require entirely different resource allocations. The second massive trap is confusing shakeout with maturity. Shakeout is violent. It's a turbulent transition period marked by excess capacity, shrinking margins, cutthroat price competition, and weaker firms waving the white flag and exiting. It's all about consolidation. Maturity is what happens after the shakeout. The market is totally saturated, demand is stable, barriers to entry are like fortress walls, and your focus is purely on operational excellence and retaining the folks you already have. Shakeout is turbulent, maturity is stable. Which brings us to Section 3, Industry versus Product Cycles. This is a critical distinction that frequently trips up exam candidates, and quite frankly, seasoned executives alike. You have to separate these two concepts in your mind. The industry life cycle takes a macro, long-term perspective. It examines broad competitive forces, guides your overall corporate strategy, and dictates whether your company should even exist in a particular space. The product life cycle is much narrower. Actually, scratch that. It's hyper-focused. It's product-specific, focuses purely on product sales, and guides marketing and pricing decisions for just that specific item. As a strategic thinker, your primary concern has to be the entire industry landscape, not just a single product's sales curve. Okay, enough theory. Let's move to Section 4 and put this to the test with some CSCK mini cases. The examiners don't just want you to regurgitate definitions. They want to see if you can actually diagnose a market under pressure. Here's your first scenario. Read the signals carefully here. We have slowing demand growth, increasing price competition, a sudden wave of mergers and acquisitions, and weaker firms are actively exiting the market. Ask yourself, what stage of development are we looking at? If you said the shakeout stage, you hit the nail right on the head. The absolute dead giveaways here are the exits and the consolidation. Growth has hit a brick wall, and there's simply too much capacity. So what's the executive move? Management has to immediately prioritize efficiency, intense cost control, and distinct differentiation just to survive the bloodbath. And hey, if you're an outsider looking in, this is literally the worst possible time to try and enter this market as a new player. Let's try scenario 2. The market signals are shifting. We are seeing rapidly increasing demand and expanding customer base, new competitors eagerly jumping into the space, and importantly, rising profitability. Where are we now? For sure, that is the growth stage. That initial uncertainty of the embryonic phase is totally gone, and economies of scale are finally starting to work in your favor. Your strategic priority here must shift aggressively. You shouldn't be focused on bare-bones survival anymore. You need to prioritize market expansion, scale your operations like crazy, and build a powerhouse brand to capture that huge influx of new customers. All right, let's look at one final scenario. The signals here are pretty grim. Falling demand, shrinking overall markets, severe and desperate price wars, and a steady stream of competitors running for the exits. What stage are we witnessing? Yeah, this is clearly the decline stage. The market is contracting, which creates immense excess capacity. And that's what triggers those vicious price wars. The executive decisions you have to make here are incredibly tough, but they are necessary. You have to focus on restructuring the business, harvesting whatever remaining profits you can extract without sinking in more investment, repositioning your assets, or strategically pulling the plug and exiting the industry altogether before you burn through your capital. Fantastic work on those cases. Let's move to our final section, Executive Reflections. We're going to summarize the core strategies you need to conquer both the CSCA exam and your future strategic challenges in the real world. If you want to think like a top-tier management consultant, you need what we call the golden rule mindset. Whenever you're faced with a business challenge, please do not look for a textbook definition. Systematically ask these 5 questions instead. Number 1, is demand increasing or decreasing? 2, how intense is the competition right now? 3, are firms eagerly entering the market or are they fleeing? 4, what is the trajectory of profitability? And finally, based on those 4 answers, what is the most appropriate strategic response? I promise you, this diagnostic framework will never fail you. So, let's distill this entire masterclass down to the top takeaways you absolutely must remember. First and foremost, industries are dynamic, not static. And because of this, your strategy has to evolve right alongside the industry. Assuming that a single successful strategy is going to work across all stages is a fatal executive error. You have to anticipate that competitive intensity will fluctuate constantly. Ultimately, correctly identifying your industry's current stage is the master key to effective resource allocation. Candidates who just memorize definitions, well, they can only answer theoretical questions. But strategists who anticipate industry evolution, they are the ones who adapt, survive, and win. Which brings us to our final thought for today. I want you to step away from the theory for just a second and look at your own company, your own market. Where is your industry heading right now, and exactly how should your organization respond to survive the next stage? Think about it, apply this framework we just went through, and I guarantee you are going to see your competitive landscape in a completely new light. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really look forward to exploring more strategic mastery with you next time.